Okay, we're live.
All right, I'll call to order tonight's meeting of the Finance Committee. It's Monday, June 15th, 2020. The time is 4:35. I'm Laura McNally, Chairwoman. I am going to do roll call here for everybody who's on today. I'm going to start at the top with Rick Deek, Anita Davis, Basha Adamczak, Chuck Shasho, Don Turnich, Demaine Kitchen, Aaron Bishop, Harry Johnson, lost my place, Jonathan Huff, Julius Oliver, Kevin Flynn, Kyle Mizek, Mike Durkin, Mike Ray, Nikki Posterly, Samantha Turner, Shailene McRae, Sharon Woodbury, Tito Brown, Valencia Morrow, Jean Leeson, Chief Finley, Jeff Limbian, Chief Lees. I think that was everybody that I see. So I'll start with pending legislation here. We have under resolutions, item number 1. I don't know if Kyle wants, before I start, I'm sorry. Rick, can you check our YouTube channel and make sure that we're streaming on there? I got a notice from some of the media. I see it says we are.
I'm looking right now.
Thanks.
Yes, we're live.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Going back to item number 1, under resolutions here, we have the change in water rate services. Kyle, is this something that you want to talk about? Does this have to do with sunsetting our $10 fee on this environmental sanitation portion, or what is this in reference to?
Through the chair, this is the recommendation by our consultant, Mike Abuzerall, on July 1 of this calendar year, to restore water rates where they were prior to reducing them, to assist by increasing our garbage pickup rates. The resolution is the required passage so that the water accounts or water rates will actually be increased to reflect where they were prior to the changes that we enacted 5 years ago, to assist with helping to fund the operations of the Environmental Sanitation Fund. So what's in front of you is a proposal by the mayor along with the water commissioner to restore those rates to where they were, so that going forward for the next 6 months, those additional revenues will be deposited into the water fund. And on an ongoing yearly basis next year, they will be fully restored to an annual amount to help assist with correcting the imbalance in the water fund.
Do we have questions from anybody right now? Samantha?
Thank you, Cal, through the chair. Just to be clear, the bill itself isn't going up. We're just moving this from one fund to the next. And Harry, can you explain that? I'm pretty sure how I understand it is that this isn't going to increase the bill by $10 starting July 1, right? Your bill is going to stay the same.
Through the chair, that is correct. We're essentially taking $10 per month from the sanitation fund and bringing it back to the water fund. So the customers in the city of Youngstown won't see a difference in their bill.
Anita?
And through the chair, this resolution is required for us to pass, even though it is the mayor's recommendation, correct?
Through the chair, I'll answer that. Anita, essentially what I did, I met with the law department, and we essentially used the process that was used back in 15 to implement this exchange, and we just decided to reverse it. So the resolution is essentially acknowledging the fact that we're going to take the money from sanitation and bring it back to the water fund, but the actual impact to the water fund, that would be signed off by me and the mayor, but the resolution just acknowledges, the action that we'll be taking, and the money that will be going back to, actually coming from the sanitation, going back to the water department.
Through the
Anita?
chair, direct follow-up. But my question, I understand that, but the process is what I'm talking about. Whether we pass this resolution or not, that reversal will be made, correct?
We can do we can do part of it. We can increase the water rates without council, but we cannot impact the sanitation. That has to be passed by council, and that's later in the agenda.
Right, but the resolution is, through the chair, but the resolution itself is just a formality on our part, confirming what's already been decided.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Mike?
Yeah, I was just, the clarification, exactly what Anita, I think Harry came to. The water rates are set by the mayor and the water commissioner, and the sanitation and waste need to be approved by us. So we'll be approving that, or it's on our agenda to approve the decrease later.
I think we originally moved the money partially to help increase our demolition efforts. So this is going to have an effect on our demolition efforts, I would assume. Can anybody speak to that regard, and what we should expect there?
Through the chair.
Mr. Durkin?
Yes. The demolition will continue as far as our street department goes. However, with the contract demolitions, that will decrease. We still do have funds, and we've set aside, and I've been working with Kyle all year. We've been setting aside money to keep demolition going. But our contract demolitions will reduce in this whole process. So those are the expensive ones with regards to asbestos abatement. On the street department demolitions, we do live, do the live loads and everything, and that's significantly cheaper than the asbestos abatement. So yes, they will decrease.
Any other questions here? Okay, we'll move on to resolution number 2. Any questions around this piece? Anita?
Through the chair, I just wanted a clarification from Cal that these funds cannot be used to supplement the wages for the safety forces, correct?
No, these are dedicated monies that will be used just for water operations. Those monies, in essence, are required to actually help.
Hey, Kyle, sorry. We moved down to number 2. This is the CARES Act. You're on mute. Sorry.
I apologize about that. I thought we were still on number 1. Number 2, yes. Based on the evaluation that Nikki and I, along with the law department, after reviewing that, it's our belief that no, we cannot use these for supplementing wages and overtime. unless that work that was performed was not scheduled as part of our normal budget process. But unfortunately, we have not had any of that type of operational work where those monies could be in essence used for the offset of those expenses.
Okay. I mean, I just want to make sure, have that clarified, because as you hear people chit chatting, they're looking at this as a cushion to supplement overtime for our general fund departments. So I just want to make sure that's clear, that this is not earmarked for wages or for regular overtime. That's all. Thank you.
Do we have a deadline when we have to use this? Have we thought about a plan for using it? Is there anything you could share along those lines?
We have to come up with a idea of how we're going to spend these funds once we determine, based on, there's other ordinances that you're going to be passing this evening that are going to be used by the health department, used by the police department. And we want to make sure that we're in no way going to spend monies that would in essence undermine how those funds are going to be used, so that we're not using funds to buy services or goods that are going to be duplicated. So we have to sit down and determine where there are areas within the health department that these monies that the commissioner is asking to appropriate are not going to be used to cover some of those already designated expenses associated with COVID-19. So once we understand how the health department and the police department are going to expend them, we'll then determine if there's other areas that we could actually expend some funds in the future, and then request those under this program that we asked you to pass that resolution to approve.
Anything else here? Okay, I'm gonna move down then. I don't see anyone else. Items number 3 and 4 are both purchases for the Youngstown Street Department. Do we have questions from anybody around this? Kyle, I was wondering, really, you know, we have quite a few people laid off in the street department. And so, you know, I would like to see people back up and working.
Okay, just one, when you say laid off, no, the people that are not working have taken voluntary layoff. They are all going to be coming back to work. They are all earning more than they would if they had been working for the city. And we plan, as department heads start to ramp up operations, to bring those employees back. Right now, the plan is, as the mayor addresses each department head's request, we're evaluating, does it make sense to bring them back sooner rather than on July 31st as we planned, because of the savings that we are generating to help all of these general government budgets. But we are in no way using funds here to purchase these trucks that are going to hinder us bringing back our employees. I think Kevin was reaching out to all of you, and during the budget meetings, he explained how if they do not replace these vehicles, they're going to be shortchanged when they're not going to be able to actually even go out and do some of the work that they need to because of the number of breakdown in some of the older vehicles. On top of that, he was able to negotiate some really sizable cuts in the cost of these vehicles, because right now there is a very little demand out there in the industry of purchasing things. So he was able to generate some sizable savings. I think nearly $20,000 between these 4 that we originally budgeted for. So those savings are going to stay in the budget and assist with the bottom line. But the administration is behind him acquiring them so that the department can move ahead and actually continue to provide those services that they are going to be handling over the summer.
Okay, so as long as it's not in lieu of or hindering, like you said, you know, the getting our street department back up and running at full capacity, then I'm comfortable with it. But if it's going to hinder our ability to do the work down there, with people? I'd question. Julius?
I just wanted to say that, based on the tour that I took of the street department, they are definitely in dire need of new vehicles to be able to complete the tasks they do on a daily basis. So I definitely support them getting new vehicles. I think Kevin has done a great job with his budget, and these vehicles are definitely needed.
Anyone else have questions? Mike?
No, I think it's good that we are, mindful, but we do know that the need is there, and we do have to cycle those out and keep doing two things at once, maintaining fiscal responsibility while also replacing the critical equipment that we need to provide those basic essential city services.
Anyone else? Okay. Number 5 is the Youngstown Fire Department radio system. Questions here? Anita?
Through the chair, Kyle, this 275,000, just for the record, could you explain where we were able to obtain the funds to make this purchase, where we made the cuts and the savings, if you would?
Through the chair, when we sat down and worked on the 2020 budget, there were requests by the street department for a new plow truck and the request by the police department to purchase SUVs as part of their maintenance recycle. We did not budget those in the 2020 budget. Instead, we moved those monies into the fire department to accommodate paying for this radio upgrade. Also within the department, we have our annual fire truck lease payment that has also been budgeted. So the combination of the two are in excess of over $335,000 in capital improvements that are going to occur this year through the firefighter department. So those monies came by reallocating those resources out of police and out of the street department.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, number 6. This is the economic development contract with Hunter Morrison. Questions here? No, we had a lengthy meeting, couple meetings on this. Anita?
Yeah, through the chair. So amongst, what can we expect, if someone could tell me, what can we expect for Hunter to produce for us? So I saw one of the things listed was an update or a review of the old 2010 plan. So are we going to get a new plan from him?
Nikki?
Through the chair, Hunter is working on the updated plan. That is correct. He helped on the 2010 plan, and he's also working now on updating that plan for future.
Anything else? Julius?
Nikki, are there any changes to this legislation, or is it staying as is?
Through the chair, there's no changes.
Thank you.
Anita?
The chair, there was one line in there, one comment that about a project. Is there a specific project Nick can tell me that he's going to be working on?
Nikki?
Through the chair, I'm reviewing here now. You're talking about within the agreement.
Under number 12, where it says breach, it says, in the event that provider fails to complete the project. What is the project?
There's many projects that we're working on right now. I submitted a list of, actually a couple of documents to council of projects that Hunter is working on. So I don't know which one in particular you mean. There were several on that document, on the documentation that I forwarded to council.
Anita,
So if he fails to complete those projects, he would be in breach, any one of those projects?
Through the chair, that would be a determination by the mayor, depending on what the understanding of the project is and what the expectation of the project is, set out by the mayor and set out by our economic development. Should he fail to produce in any of those areas, it would be the same as an employee evaluation. So this is how we evaluate the work.
will council be able to get updates on his work, benchmarks that he might be hitting, tangible things that we can see being done over the course of the year?
Through the chair, yes, I can provide that. I'd be happy to provide that.
Any other questions? Mike?
No, just a comment. Just knowing Hunter's background and working with him throughout the years when he was with the university, I think we could have a great opportunity to have someone with that caliber of experience to be working with us. So I think it's a good opportunity to get things in place and get some projects accomplished.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm gonna move on. Number 7. This is a cooperative agreement with the Western Reserve Port Authority. Again, this looks like economic development. Questions? Nikki, you want to say something?
Only if there's questions. I thought you were opening it up for me. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Questions from anybody? Samantha?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if Nikki can provide some more details on this particular legislation.
Through the chair, this is a great opportunity for the city of Youngstown to partner with Western Reserve Port Authority. I'm not sure if many of you know, they have a partnership with the city of Warren where they've worked on some projects for them in economic development, one of them being the beautiful winery that they have in their downtown area. So what we want to do is extend that same partnership with the city and the Port Authority, and where we can now position ourselves for city-owned properties, and while we're doing land acquisitions so that we can start getting our land in productive use for economic development activities, the Port Authority can market that for us. So we're looking for a partnership with them to be able to collaborate to move some of the properties that we've been sitting on, and some of the land that can be, used differently. And they have an eye for that. This is what they do. We are not the only city that we're lucky to have a port authority, but we're not the only city that uses port authorities. Many cities across the country use their port authorities in a similar way for economic development.
Anita?
I think Mike had his hand up first, Lauren.
Okay, Mike?
Thanks, Anita. I'm glad to see this is moving forward. There was a project, a couple parcels I was working with the Port Authority, and they brought this to the administration some time ago. So when we do have them, we don't have to make agreements one-off. It's kind of an established agreement that we can, as we need, interact with them, and the language is already there. And I think Nikki cited some successful places in Warren. So I'm working on a couple things with them, and this is great because then it doesn't consume time to do individual agreements for each individual parcel or project that we would do. And the Port Authority is just positioned a little bit more nimble on some sides of this development stuff that would be a true benefit and a great partnership. So I'm glad to see this is moving forward. I support it.
Anita?
Yeah, through the chair. Not too long ago, I thought we just signed a contract with some real estate company to do some of the same things. Am I right or wrong on that? And is there gonna be a conflict?
Through the chair, the real estate company that we contracted with was just a one-time agreement, and that was for the AT&T building. At the time, we didn't have this agreement ironed out with the Port Authority and how it looked going forward, which was one of the reasons why we amended that agreement to say that we can terminate at any time. So that was a one-time shot. With the Port Authority, we can kind of umbrella everything, and we don't have to come before you each and every time there's a building or an opportunity that we want to present.
Thank you.
Julius?
Just want to say, I support this legislation as well. The Port Authority has done some great projects around the city. I think they bring a certain level of expertise, and I think it's a great partnership. So I support it. Thanks.
Samantha?
Thank you, Nikki, for the information and clarification. Can you please send us a copy of the agreement to attach with this legislation?
Yes, I'll forward it to you now.
How, Demaine?
Yeah, I have a question. Nikki, does this change the needs within our own economic development department? If they're going to be doing a lot of things that, essentially would be coming out of that office, if we're contracting it out, does that rearrange your priorities as far as personnel or assignments within economic development right now?
Through the chair, what this does is gives us a better opportunity right now. So if you can think of them in terms of like a regional chamber, whenever there is a business prospect, the regional chamber will reach out and say, I have a prospect that's looking for this much land, this much building space. What we can do now is use the Port Authority in that same space. So it'll be almost like we're getting the benefit of both worlds. They can also reach out further. What we do now internally is once we get that connection, then we start showing the businesses, showing the properties that we have. We are not leveraging it on the larger scale like the regional chamber or the Port Authority has access to do.
What's the role then of our business recruiter? Because in my mind, that would be her role.
Our business recruiter is that, in a sense. What she does is she's our on the ground real estate agent. So she'll show them the building. She will work with Sharon on the financing, that's available through the city, or the financing that options that we have. We're still going to be involved in that process. But again, what the Port Authority can do, they have more access to, I guess, a greater reach. They're a bigger complement to what we already have in our limited capacity.
Mike?
Maybe an example of that might be, they're a partner. They're not going to do everything. Some of the financing options and some of the big projects they've done where they have different resources to different pools of money. And then if we have that contract in place, it's a lot smoother, even though some folks, other departments may do some of those things. It would just be an ease of use. And it's not going to be every time. They might not work for everything, but on some of them, they might just be the better, entity to get things done for us.
Demaine?
Yeah, no, I appreciate all of that. I'm very well aware of what the Port Authority does and their success and track record. My only question was, does having them as a partner create less of a need for some of the requests that were made in economic development? It seemed like there'll be some, to Lauren's question, to her point, some redundancies and repetitive, we're paying twice for one service. So I'm very familiar with the Port Authority. I know their track record. I know several of the members on the board, but just looking at a lot of requests that's been made to beef up our own economic development department with staffing and requests, so then only contract out to someone who's going to do the same job description, it was a little head scratching to me. That's all. I just needed clarity on that.
Through the chair, if I may respond.
Nikki, go ahead.
President and Council, actually, this is, like I said, a complement to what we're already doing, and there's no cost to this agreement. So if there's no sale at the end of it, we don't pay anything. So, you know, if there's a successful sale, as you'll see, I'm going to forward you over this agreement. There's a $500 administrative fee, and there's a 5% of the sale. So they will work just in tandem, like we have the real estate company now working for AT to sell the AT&T building. It would be a similar type deal where 5% goes to them, the rest goes to the city, and they get a $500 administrative fee. If nothing happens at the end of the deal, there's no cost to us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that helps clarify things for me, Nikki, that I thought we were paying them in some type of annual retainer in this position. So whatever they do for us, that's when they get paid. If nothing happens, if no sale happens, no new business comes in, nothing like that, they don't get anything from us.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Basha?
Thank you through the chair. Just a quick comment, and from the way that I'm understanding it, they're somewhat kind of like what a broker would be to a real estate agent. So they have access to more leads, and they would just in essence help solidify the deal. And as was mentioned, I mean, this is no cost to us unless a deal is done. So I think having more people on board is always beneficial to spur economic development.
What is the state of the business recruiter coming back to work? I believe she was one of the people who took the voluntary layoff.
Through the chair, at the end of every 30 days, we meet with the mayor to evaluate where we are staffing wise and what the need is. So at the end of this 30 days, what we'll be doing is evaluating where we are with economic development. Now that we have some things in the works and some partnerships going, we'll assess where we are with recruiting. If we don't bring her back July 1st, she'll definitely be back July 31st. I mean, August 1st, after July 31st.
Okay, so then the need for expanding your department isn't a super big rush if you don't need to bring back the employees you already have yet?
Through the chair, the plan that I propose is the need, regardless of if we do it now or if we do it once the employees are back. I understand the greater need, which was the financial piece, which is why we agreed, and Vicky agreed to take the voluntary furlough. At some point, we need to get back to work and we need to move forward with this plan. And that's why I said at the end of the 30 days of this month is when we evaluate to determine, is it feasible financially to bring her back now, or is it feasible to bring her back August 1st? And that's when we'll introduce the whole plan. The whole reason I had to introduce the plan prematurely was based on the recommendations from the earlier meeting, the May meeting.
The Maine.
Yeah, just one final question, Nikki. There's no cost to us if we have a deal, then they get 5% of the total project or something you said. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So where does that money come from? Does it come from the new business, the new company? Does it come from our business development fund? Is there a cap on the 5% up to a certain number?
It comes out of the cost of the sale.
The cost of the sale. So, okay.
So if we're looking, and
I'm saying if they're going to attract the business, for example, because we got an agent to sell to AT&T, but the Port Authority, from what I believe I was hearing, was to help us with landing other opportunities and attracting other businesses, correct?
That is correct.
So let's say they are successful, they identify a company, they want to locate the company here in Youngstown. Everything is great. Once that deal is done, where does that 5%? Is that company expected to pay them, or you know what I mean? Where is it coming from, and is there a cap? What if it's another Valoric type of situation? You know what I mean? Like, is there a cap, or is that 5% just kind of unlimited?
It's 5%, $500 administrative fee, and 5% of any sale. So if we sold any property, it's 5%. If we, got business attraction here and they want to start up and they have their own financing in place and there's no benefit, there's no transition of money of any of our properties. If it's land sale, then they get 5% of that. But if there's no transfer of money that has to do with any city-owned property or city-owned land, it's just a $500 administrative fee.
Okay.
And we would pay that $500 fee out of our business development fund then,
That is correct.
Kyle? Okay. Any other questions here? Oh, Samantha.
Thank you through the chair. Nikki, this would help me tremendously. There's a couple different things you're requesting in the full restructuring of the department, and this is an additional piece to that. It would be great if we could see it all together. It's piecemealing, and I understand what this is an addition to what we have, but I feel like there is it's all these different parts, and I'm trying to pull all these moving parts together to see the end game and where they all fit. That makes sense.
Through the chair, yes, I can do that. This again, as Councilman Ray mentioned, this agreement was in place over a year ago. This is something that had already been in the work for some time now. It's just finally materialized into an actual agreement. So yes, we can incorporate it into the economic development piece of the plan.
Anything else here? Okay. I'm going to move on to number 8. This is for our 2020 street resurfacing program. Questions for Chuck? Chuck, we all good there?
Through the chair, yes. This piece of legislation probably should have came up a little sooner, but we had a little bit of confusion with everything that was going on. So, but we got it up there. We're ready to go.
Okay. I will move on. Number 9. This is also Chuck, replacement of a storm sewer. Any questions here? Okay. Oh, Samantha.
Thank you through the chair. Chuck, can you provide us with the work order list for this storm sewer, please?
Through the chair, we don't have any calls out to the storm sewer. This isn't the type of storm sewer that we would regularly inspect or maintain. First of all, it was relatively new. It was put in when they built the 7-Eleven interchange. It's off of the road. It wasn't in a residential neighborhood or even in a roadway. It went through an infill area where the interchange is. It was significantly deep. It was about 30 to 40 feet deep. And I think that was one of the reasons it led to a collapse. I remember when they built 7-Eleven, there was a lot of problems with some abandoned mine shafts, and some settling may have occurred. And I think that may have been one of the causes for the collapse. But it did collapse prematurely. It was a very large storm sewer, carried a lot of flow. It's not something we would regularly inspect. We responded to a sinkhole in the infield, basically, is the only work order we had.
Samantha.
Direct follow-up through the chair. So with it collapsing prematurely, what was the lifespan on it? And is there any recourse with it collapsing prematurely with any of the construction or any work that was done?
The pipe has been in probably about 15 years. I would expect a pipe like that to last probably about 30 years. Realistically, the lifespan from the manufacturer is probably 30 years. Realistically, I would say I would expect it to last 50 years or so. But it just didn't work out that way. There was some things that happened with the installation, perhaps some concrete that was in there, and it just it wasn't the best installation probably. The work was done by ODOT, by the way.
Thank you. Direct follow-up. So have you got in contact with ODOT with it not lasting even to its minimum life expectancy? to see if there's any assistance that can be given to us to make this correction?
The typical warranty on a job like that's 1 year. So that was and even with all those, the agreements that we get from ODOT when they do the projects, their warranty on the job is going to be 1 year, unless it's a piece of equipment or something, or a roof, things like pipe that are buried in the ground, they don't really warranty the manufacturer.
Mike,
And Chuck, I mean, this is right kind of near the epicenter of the earthquakes, right? I mean, that could have had an impact.
Through the chair, it generally is in that area, the Briar Hill area, just below Briar Hill, around VNM, right across the street from VNM, actually. So, yes, there were some seismic activity there back around 2012 or so. I can't really say for sure if that had anything to do with it, but it's possible.
Okay. Just wanted to note that.
any other questions on this one? Okay. I think Chuck, you're up again there. Marshall Street Pump Station on number 10 here. Any questions for him? Samantha?
Is this the last invoice, Chuck?
Through the chair, this is the last invoice. The total spent on the project, we have just under 2 million for Rich and Gaffney, and about $140,000 to Norfolk Southern for permits, fees, and licensing. It is complete.
Anything else there? Okay, I'm going to move on to number 11. This is a police department grant. Any questions? Anita?
Through the chair, Cal, was this one that was expected, that we budgeted already?
Through the chair, when we put together the 2019 budget, it was not part of that. So there was about 280,000 that was paid in 19. When we developed the 2020 budget, we were aware that the project was ongoing. The scope was not as large as the finishing budget. So yes, to answer the question, it was part of the budget, but no, it was not fully for the full cost built in as a capital budget, because it was unknown when we were working on the budget how much it was going to cost to fix the entire project.
Oh, Kyle, I'm sorry. I was wondering what you were talking about. We actually moved on down to number 11, the grant for the Youngstown Police Department. This one, I don't think we've seen this one before. It looks kind of new, so I think she was wondering if indeed. Keep up with us, Kyle.
I apologize. Number 11, based on the fact that they're asking you to accept, it is a new grant that the police department is requesting, and we will appropriate those funds and they will use those funds how it is outlined in the grant. We don't typically budget for any of the grants. That's why they always come up to council and are requested as an ordinance, because we have to put these appropriations in a special GL code that we track. So these are never built into the budget. That's why they're always done individually as an ordinance.
Any other on this one, Samantha?
Yeah, I was wondering if the chief can explain to us what the operation is and where exactly this will be going once it gets to the police department. If you could give us some information.
Chief Lees?
Yes, this is actually a reimbursement, folks. This money has already been spent last fall. This was a follow-up to the Steel Penguin, which is a firearms enforcement effort. It was a project that was a partnership between City Police Department, ATF, and the Adult Parole Authority. The money comes from Project Safe Neighborhoods, and it's federal grant money. And as I said, it was spent last fall on this, into the first of the year. So it was finished right after the first of the year. This is a reimbursement.
Anything else? Samantha?
Question might be for Jeff. Should this legislation read that way, that this is a reimbursement for funds that have already been expended?
If I could continue, that it's in the legislation. It shows that the grant was administered between, I believe, October and February of last year and this year.
Go ahead, Samantha.
I definitely see that, but it reads as though as we're accepting it. I mean, and that might just be clarity because I'm new, but it reads as though we're accepting it, and those are the dates. It could have been delayed because of COVID or something like that. I just think maybe there should be something that says that the funds have already been expended for the program. That's all. And I mean, I could be wrong. Is Jeff on?
I think he is on, but I think he's on. But maybe are you?
Can I
Are
address
you
it?
sure? Okay, go ahead, Kyle.
Yes. So it has the companion piece number 19 to appropriate it. There are times when certain grants that the police department gets that they actually ask them if they're going to provide those types of services, that once those services are provided, then they'll actually reimburse. And typically these are much smaller in scale. Like this was for almost $11,000. So, and it does identify that there's no match in kind. So these monies were expended in December of last year and early this year. And we've had them in the past where we've done things like this. And typically the chief has put up legislation normally requesting that we accept it after it has occurred, but it's normally much smaller, not like these larger ones that are, on the agenda going forward. But this is not the first time that we've done this, and it does happen on occasion. And that's what the chief had outlined when he was explaining it.
So there would have been some agreement with Board of Controllers. How did you expend the money on the front end? Maybe that would help explain, because it wouldn't have come through council necessarily to pay for whatever it was that you paid for, knowing that we were getting reimbursed.
No, through the chair, this is overtime. I think the police officers actually went out and provided these services. Those hours were tracked, and now they're putting in for that reimbursement. And because it fell at the end of the calendar year, this is also an issue because of when the acceptance and the fact that it's 2 calendar years. It's easier that they put the request and the full reimbursement back into this calendar year. So that way, when we report on the usage of these funds, they will be part of our 2019 and 2020 audit.
Through the chair, this is Jeff Limbian.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay. I don't seem to understand the unmute process. Councilwoman Turner, I would be happy to provide more clarity in the language. I certainly understand your point, and if we can provide more succinct language, we'll be happy to do that before Wednesday.
Thank you, to the chair. Great, that would be helpful.
Okay, Anita.
To the chair, Chief Lees. So this was an overtime detail. What was the goal of the detail? I mean, traffic enforcement, gun seizure, what was it?
It was a firearms, it was a target firearms offenders, which is what it did basically. It was a combination of enforcement through ATF, adult parole, and our officers.
What did they do?
They focused on areas we knew we had, again, gun crimes occurring. APA worked very closely with us and conducted home visits. And it was basically a combination of those two that we focused on.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on this piece? Okay, I'm gonna move on. We have number 12. This is accepting another grant. Questions on this? This is going into the Economic Development Department? Kyle?
Through the chair. No, this is the police department. This is the CIRV. This is the money that we use a portion of this to compensate Guy Barney.
Through the chair, number 12 is
Oh,
economic
no.
development. That's Sharon.
I'm sorry. I went to 13. I apologize.
Okay.
It's dark in here and I can't see
You're
the numbers.
struggling, Kyle.
I'm struggling. I apologize.
Okay, so number 12 is going to economic development. Okay, Sharon, what are you supposed to use this one for?
Through the chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. I had some challenges with audio as well. So I will explain this, but if you have time to indulge me, there was a comment that I wanted to add to the Port Authority, but I couldn't jump in to
Sure.
provide some additional information for the group. So the legislation that you have before you is in response to the hardship caused by COVID-19. There is funding that Jumpstart and KeyBank have partnered together to accomplish through their KeyBank Business Boost and Build program. As a part of that, they are funding communities throughout Ohio. And they have been working with the city in providing some funding for us as we look to put forward our own funds. The $20,000 that they're providing is leveraging additional funds to support an appropriation of funding that we'll put forth for our own business assistance program. A couple weeks back, I sent the group an outline of that program. We are still working out the details. The funding that we'll be using is from HUD CDBG COVID funds, and there are still some guidelines that have to be finalized for that whole process. So we're not ready to roll out the program and announce the details, but this component of it was kind of the first piece in the first puzzle of that, and we wanted to get the funding that they were making available in place. So this is a companion piece with item 20.
Okay, so what, with this one and the other money that you've received from HUD, what is the total amount that you're working with right now?
So what I've requested before CDA is 200,000, and so in total, 220,000 would go to local businesses.
Anyone else have questions on this piece? Okay, Sharon, do you want to make a comment or additional information about item number 7 with the Western Reserve Port Authority?
Yes, so in the role of the Port Authority, there is a certain form of agility and ability for redevelopment that they have in place that the city cannot utilize because of our process. They have the ability to go out for funding and provide tax credits during construction periods. There are scenarios and circumstances where there may need to be some development to vanilla box a structure, and the owner of that building may have to hold that building until it's ready to transfer over to a business. Those are things we can't do with the city. It's not going to be for all of our buildings, but they're going to be working with us on identifying buildings that make sense for them to take on that role and serve in that capacity. So it's just expanding abilities that we don't have.
Okay, oh, Julius? Is your question about number 7 or?
No, it's about the assistance piece.
Okay, well, okay, anything further for Sharon on number 7 real quick? Just so we don't jump around too much. Thanks for jumping in there, Sharon. With that, okay, we'll go back down now to the $20,000. Let me just hit the number. Crap, I lost my place.
12.
Oh, number 12. Thank you. Item number 12. Pulling a Kyle there. Okay, Julius. Item number 12. Questions on this piece?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So the question, Sharon, is have we created any new avenues to get this assistance information out to minority businesses, or are we doing that in-house, or how are we going to accomplish that?
Sharon, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, we have already had conversations with local technical assistance partners and organizations where we will have them partnering, and they are serving a targeted community with our minority businesses and disadvantaged businesses. Those roles all come together. It will help us expand what our funding can do with our businesses. I really am trying not to get into too much detail because we're still kind of finalizing things, but as a component of that, we did want to make sure that our minority businesses were positioned well, and in a bonus point system and matrix, they will score well with the funding. So I don't see that being a problem. As long as we can get businesses to apply, we should be able to hit that mark.
Thank you, Sharon.
Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. Sharon, did you say you're going to partner with a local organization that works with minority businesses and they'll apply through that? Did you?
So it's really about all of the organizations being able to provide another level of assistance to their niche. The Minority Business Assistance Center is one of our partners that we'll be working with. So they have a steady flow of businesses and customers that are coming through their doors for assistance. It helps get the word out. It helps with those businesses that may not, for whatever reason, know the funding that the city has. And so it helps to funnel the number of applications and representing the businesses that are in the city.
Okay, thank you. And direct follow-up, will we have to enter into any contracts or pay those organizations out of that 220,000, or the 220,000 will specifically be for minority businesses and the partnership would just be kind of a pass-through?
So all of the technical assistance partners are not they don't have a need for us to provide any additional funding because it's their lane and what they're doing anyway. There are some administrative costs that we will incur with one of our organizations that won't come out of the 220,000. HUD makes an allowance for administrative fees. So there will be the 220,000 going to businesses plus additional funding for any administrative costs.
Thank you.
Okay, Anita?
Through the chair, this is just not for minority businesses, correct? This is for any small business. Sharon?
Correct. This is not just for minority businesses. These are for any businesses that have been affected by COVID-19. We do have some parameters that we will be putting in place in terms of it's not for startups. It will be for certain uses of funds, but it's not going to specifically go just to minorities. This is open to the entire Youngstown business community.
Thank you.
Anything else here? Okay. I'm going to move on. Number 13 is the SERV grant. Any questions around this piece? Anita?
This is for the wages for Guy Burney.
Kyle?
Through the chair, a portion of this is used for the wages. Most of it gets used to fund the programs and to assist with any of the operations that CIRV does within the community. So I think out of this grant, about 18,000 of his salary is paid. The remainder is now paid by the city, where we step up and budget CIRV as part of the normal police department budget.
Anita?
Hey, Chief Lees, what does exactly the CIR stand for, and what are its duties, its parameters?
The CIRB is the Community Initiative to Reduce Violence. The CRV started out as a kind of a model of Dr. David Kennedy's ceasefire, which was used successfully in other cities. We still use that to some extent with the call-ins, as well as some of the other prevention models that are associated with that. In addition to that, it's been expanded into a number of areas and programs. Annually, Guy Burney takes a group of students to various colleges. We have the Women of Worth program, and they do a retreat over a weekend after they go through, again, a kind of an indoctrination or whatever they need in the way of assistance. In addition to that, it's been expanded to My Brother's Keeper last year, which was done. There was another program that we held at the Cavelli Center, and again, it brought in a group of high school students and exposed them to basically job opportunities. It's kind of a comprehensive prevention and guidance program, if you will. It seems to expand a little bit each year, and so it continues, and I think it's one of our best prevention models that I've seen.
Julius?
Yeah, question for Chief. At what point do you see yourself allocating more money from the police department budget into the SERV department, maybe so SERV can take care of some of those non-emergency needs, like social calls and of that nature for the city of Youngstown?
Through the chair, I don't know at this point. We've, as department heads, have been told to reduce by 20% this year. I was in an earlier conversation with the finance director and the mayor over some other programming. That's really kind of up in the air right now. As far as some of the counseling and that goes, we have a social worker within the family services unit that deals with, again, the domestic relations and other problems that come in there with the juveniles. And right now she's actually taken a voluntary layoff. So would I like to have another social worker? Absolutely. Is it something that's, attainable right now? That'd be a better question for Kyle.
Follow up.
Julius?
Chief, I just want you to give some thought to shifting some of those services that the police department do around to SERV, so that maybe SERV can take care of, like mental health calls and other social calls that really don't require a police presence at times. Just give us some thought.
Absolutely.
Chief, are there specific things for the SERV grant that we get that you have to use it for, or is it pretty broad-based and so you can apply it to all those things that you listed?
Well, it comes in with a budget, and it's allocated accordingly. Part of the program is usually through the summer, and of course, this being a little different, we would award mini grants to summer programs for various churches and other groups to conduct, if you will, summer school or some of the things that the churches would sponsor as well in the neighborhoods. So that would be part of the that would be part of the budget. In addition to that, as Kyle said, a portion of that goes to Guy Burney's salary. And again, other project money, whether it's funding, as I said, like this Women's of Worth effort, which they get away for a weekend. We pay for all of that. The transportation for the students to the colleges. It's all in the budget of the program. And it pays as well for some police overtime for the officers to accompany Guy Burney on some of these different programming missions.
Samantha?
Thank you, through the chair. Chief, so you said that the program grows or, expands a little each year. How are you measuring the results? And once you get the measurements of the results, how are you evaluating to make an expansion or add another program each year?
Well, through the chair, to answer your question, the part of the issue there is it's prevention, and it's a little difficult to measure a non-event at times. What I can say is that in the my experience with the program in the early stages, we were having a lot of gun violence where it involved young men in their late teens and mid-teens and early 20s. That's diminished significantly. The gun violence we are experiencing a lot of times now are older men, and again, would not have had the benefit of some of the things that the program provides. In addition to that, it's the continued programming and the expansion being measured to some extent by the level of participation. And if you want to get into further details, I would suggest you talk to Guy Burney about it, because of course he has this stuff at his fingertips.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you. We'll continue on then. Number 14 says our coronavirus emergency funding grant. This is also, I believe, for the police department, it looks like.
Yes, through the chair. This was a grant that was offered as part of the pandemic issue and the related problems. We applied for and received the grant. It includes sanitizing equipment, gloves, masks, all the associated material. There's some in there for police overtime for enforcement, and that kind of capsulizes it, but there's no match, and it was a straight award to the police department.
And how much of it will be for the overtime?
I couldn't say right off without looking at the budget, but I don't think there's a lot of overtime money there. It's not that significant.
Anita?
Through the chair, Lauren, you did ask one of my questions, which was what portion of this is for overtime and what portion of this is for material items that the officers can use. And also, Chief, is this for just the officers, or is it for the officers to dispense to and share with the community?
Through the chair, this would be strictly for the officers. As you know, the number of masks, gloves, sanitizing equipment that we've been going through. I mean, each shift is out there cleaning the cars and materials within the building as well. So, and over the course of months, we've gone through quite a bit of it. So it's primarily for materials. There's a small portion in there for overtime for enforcement.
Anita?
Yeah, so Chief, it's not just for the uniformed officers, it's for all police personnel, the civilians as well.
Through the chair, absolutely. I mean, like I said, we've used a lot of this stuff within the building, and again, areas in the building that are high touch surfaces, etc.
Okay. Through the chair,
Anita?
How could you dig into your budget and find out, because the chief doesn't have it, but do you by any chance have the percentage that's set aside, the maximum we're allowed to use for overtime versus for material items?
To the chair, we're going to have to ask the grant analyst to provide me with the actual documentation. When we actually put the appropriations onto the system, that normally then comes down and I set it up per the grant requirements. So that's normally when I see it. So I'll have that next week when this legislation is passed and that documentation, then it requires me to put it onto the ledger and the, that information I'll share with you once the police department sends it down with the legislation.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Samantha?
Through the chair, Cal or Chief, is it possible to attach the budget submitted when we applied for the grant, to help with clarity when we get the legislation? A lot of the questions are around what we are doing with the funding, but you've already put the budget together to make us to submit this. So is there a way to just include that with it so we could have the optimal clarity?
Through the chair, yeah, that's no problem. That, you know, the budget, the grant application requires a budget, so it's spelled out there. And if you want to see that beforehand, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Anything else on this piece? Okay. Number 15, this is a technology grant for the Youngstown Municipal Court. Any questions here?
Through the chair, just the
Kyle.
number 15 and number 16, Judge Baldwin and the department has been awarded these two grants from the Supreme Court of Ohio. One is to improve communications within the courthouse, and the other one is to purchase equipment that is going to help with them operating their tracking of certain types of cases. There is no match requirement, and we are blessed that these monies are being provided because they're going to make improvements to our courthouse, and it will not be out of our own capital budget.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Let's see, so that was 15 and 16. So, oh, I'm sorry, someone have a question?
Nothing more than taking.
Lee's, is that Chief Lee's? Oh, I think you went on mute now. Okay. I think we're good here. All right, I'm gonna move on. Okay, so number 17 is accepting COVID-19 grant for the Youngstown City Health District for contact tracing. Looks like this one's super specific. So are there any questions? No questions? Okay. Number 18 is another accepting of a grant for our health department. And this looks like it's also specific to incident surge and information management. Questions around this? Samantha?
Aaron, could you just kind of give us an overview on what incident surge and information management is? Contact tracing seems to be pretty self-explanatory.
Yes, through the chair, for incident management for early crisis response, that we were able to purchase PPE such as gloves, masks, individual alcohol-based hand sanitizers. So that's what we did. We are waiting for the hand sanitizers to come in. We were hoping that it would be there for Friday so that we could, for Saturday's event, so we could pass out sanitizer to everybody as well as masks, because we are going to have masks available, excuse me, for people that don't have masks on Saturday. And then also, this also goes with our information management part of the grant. And so we did the commercials, in the educational outreach. We're going to be sending out a flyer. The mayor is putting it together. It's not ready yet, but it'll be a flyer that goes out to our residents, still encouraging the social distancing, the wearing of masks. Also, we signed up for another 2 months of our commercial because it was only scheduled to be on the news and the radio for 2 months. So we upped it for 2 more months. And then we're able to, with this, also hire an epidemiologist with some of the funding. And then we did have one of when it first happened, our nurse practitioner really only works on the grant for reproductive health, Miss Cynthia Daniels. So she wasn't able to work with COVID because of the funding. So we were able to pay her out of the COVID funding and not take any of her reproductive health and wellness money, because that's separate part of the grant. So we did that with her because at the beginning we needed her for, before they got into this contact tracing, it was call everybody every single day, check on them. And now it's really, mainstream. But like for today, we had a positive case today, and they had 20 contacts in the last week. So this person with the contact tracing, they'll call every single person, and then what they do is they send them text messages out for like the rest of the time, just to kind of check on them if they have questions, who to call. So at the beginning, it was a little bit different. So that's what we've used that funding for. And they have talked about, even increasing that funding to do more for testing. But right now, Ohio Department of Health has enough tests that they're kind of just giving it to us. But eventually, if say we needed to purchase some testing, they would let us use some of this money to do that. And hopefully they said they would even give us more money. So that's what that's for.
Thank
Samantha?
you. Thank you, Erin. So you really stretched this 85,000 with purchase of PP, which is you're gonna, when you do get it, it'll be for, to give out to the community at community educational events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we did get some of it at the beginning, and we're able to, like, the health department, we had nothing at the time, and we were able to, luckily later on when it was available, then Mr. Chief Finley was able to get some from the EMA, but there was a time where they didn't have anything, so we were able to purchase some, and we passed it out to our everyone in the city. And then once we got some from the EMA, we were able to even give out more masks and stuff. So that's, what we want to do. When we go to do testing eventually in the congregate settings, it'd be nice we want to have a package to bring them. Here's a mask as well as hand sanitizer. You know what I mean? Just to kind of get that out into, the different high rises and whatnot.
Great. And direct follow-up. And what percentage of this would you say you used on wages? Because you said some of it went towards your epidemiologist, another towards a nursing staff member.
Yeah. So out of the 85, we used 29,906, and 8,000 went to our certified nurse practitioner for that.
Thank you.
Erin, how much did you budget for the, I guess, the information outreach, commercials, the whatever you did there?
Yep, that is 35,000.
And that included commercials.
Yep.
And what else?
Television commercials, social media and radio advertisements, the yard signs and program supplies for like the mass mailing for COVID-19 information. That hasn't come out yet. That'll be coming out in the next couple weeks.
And I guess this question I think is actually for Kyle, but Kyle, like, how are we paying for those types of supplies for all of our individual departments that are out there in the field?
The departments, through the chair, the departments that actually have expended those monies that are not covered by these grants, meaning the police department, the health department, that's where we are collecting that information, because the earlier item number 2, where you award, the resolution where we have submitted the application to actually draw down on those funds, we're going to collect all the information from those departments that are not identified here. And those are the costs that we're going to roll up and actually ask for reimbursement. So it's going to be easier on my behalf because our department has the invoices, but those departments that I'm talking to, they know the vendors that they chose to work with. So they're going to let me know what vendors they used. We're going to pull the invoices, and that's part of the information that we're going to pull together and actually get reimbursement on.
So, not spending say any portion of this $83,000 for, you know, the code enforcement department supplies. Like that wasn't an option. We wanted to keep this $83,000 for the community outreach type stuff and community supplies.
Lauren, no, we did put 20,412 that went to PPE, and we were able to give those to our departments. You know, and the PPE was not cheap, so we were able to get N95 masks and pass that out for people that need it. We helped when it first came. You know, we were going out and doing with the kids at the city schools. We were able to supply that. So that was over $20,000 in PPE that we have on that grant.
Anita?
Through the chair, Aaron, were any of these funds used towards the event that's going to take place down at the amphitheater this weekend? Because I noticed that the health department was listed, its little logo, and is that considered an educational event?
So, Anita, through the chair, what we're doing for that event is the health department, we're going to be taking everybody's temperature, and then we worked with them as they planned the event to make sure that, you know, they were following all the guidelines, social distancing, everyone has to wear a mask, and then also we'll be providing the masks for anybody. And like I said, we're going to be, you know, giving out some information as well as hopefully the hand sanitizer if it's in time.
Samantha?
Again, through the chair, thank you. Aaron, if it's possible, with this grant, did you submit a budget, or was this just something that was awarded? And if you did submit a budget, is that possible for you to send that over just to provide an extra level of clarity?
Through the chair, it was submitted with my legislation. Both grants had everything broken out.
So Jeff, maybe you could forward that to us because we didn't get that piece of information.
Yes, I could forward it to you tomorrow, but I always do submit it, so in case you need to see it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else here? Okay, I'm going to move on then. Okay, so 19 through 26 are all appropriating all of the grant money that we just spoke about. So unless anyone has any objection, I'm just going to move on. Okay. So number 27, 27 is also appropriating, I'm sorry. And so is 28, the grant monies. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. 29 through 34 is discretionary. So I'm gonna keep going. And number 35, is amending the salary ordinance. This was on at our last meeting. There were some clerical issues with it. So it's back all cleaned up. Any questions here? We're just changing job descriptions from what I recall last time. Any other changes, Harry?
No, through the chair, we'll be changing just the job title here. The job
Yes.
changes will go through civil service. That's it.
Okay, questions from council? All right, I don't see anyone. So that actually is 35 and 36. And then 37 is the contract for the Economic Development Department. Any questions around this? Okay. Oh, Samantha.
Yes, just for clarification, this is for technical assistance. Beverly, Shion, or Nikki?
Through the chair, I don't think Beverly's on. She had another call. This is for the consultants agreement to include the monies that we received for COVID. It was not included in the original agreement that was passed. So now that we have those additional funds, we needed to update and amend the agreement.
Right, excuse me, through the chair, but she was this for them to provide technical assistance though for her when we had that long conversation?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Number 38, this is changing the
Lauren.
garbage. Oh, I'm sorry. Anita, do you have a question on 37?
But this is just expanding upon what we had already passed, correct? I just want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding this.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All good. Okay. Anything else on 37? Okay. 38. I think this is the piece that we spoke about at the very beginning that goes with our water resolution. Any questions, comments? Nothing? Okay. That's the end of the agenda. Anything under miscellaneous? All right, then I will take a motion from someone. Basha?
Thank you. Through the chair, I would like to make a motion to forward resolutions 1 and 2, along with ordinances 3 through 38 to the council body as a whole for consideration of passage.
Second.
Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned at 6:01. And Rick, you can close us out. Thank